Hey everybody, it's Jake, and today we're going to show you how to take this Briggs and Stratton 163cc motor apart. So before we get started, let's talk about a few things we need to get going. As far as tools you're going to need, I've got some 1/4-inch sockets and a handle driver here. You could also use a ratchet as well, 1/4-inch ratchet for pretty much everything on this, with a couple exceptions, and we'll show you those when we get to them. I'm also using just a small impact and a small driver here, and then you are going to need a Torx bit for 2 Torx screws right here, and I'll show you what those are in just a minute. I also try and keep a bunch of these just snack bags, these Ziploc snack bags, keep my parts organized. That way I don't get them lost or don't get them mixed up with them going to something other part or anything like that. So I'm just going to kind of bag things up as I go, and these are really great with a Sharpie. You just write on here whatever it is and you're good to go. Let's talk about the fuel and the oil real quick before we start disassembling this. Of course, I want to drain the fuel out, and I'm just going to unscrew the cap and get a catch pan. I'm going to pour as much as I can out of here, and then I also have on the bottom of the carburetor I've got a small plug that takes an Allen here, and so I can just take that and put that in there and unscrew that, and then also put a catch pan under that, get most of that out. I'm still going to be very careful. I want to tip the tank back when I am removing the tank from the carburetor, just in case there's any more fuel in there. That way it'll be captured in the back of the tank, and then I can kind of tip that forward and take the rest of the fuel out and put that in a gas can or wherever I want to put it. As far as draining the oil, all I'm doing with this is I'm just going to unscrew the dipstick, and as best I can with the catch pan, I'm just going to tip this and dump it out just like this into another catch pan and get all that oil out. Now, the one we're working on right now is dry. The fuel is out, the oil is out, so I don't need to worry about it. But of course, I want to do those two things before I start just doing any disassembly on this. So let's get going. So to take this cover off, these are Torx screws in here. This is a T25, so make sure you're using a T25 to take this out. And you don't need to take them all the way out. And with this one, there's a plastic clip right here, so you have to kind of push down and back to disengage this. You can't just lift this up. So once you kind of push that down, you can see it kind of clips into right here, so you have to just kind of push it back and up, and that will loosen that up. Next, we're going to go ahead and take this pole cover off with our pull string, and let's go ahead and do that. Next, we're going to take our heat shield off or our exhaust / muffler, but first we got 1, 2, 3 for the shield to kind of protect it, and then we got 2 more here. Now we're just going to be careful because this is our mechanism to control our choke. As this metal underneath, it's a bimetal strip, as it heats up, it will actually help open that flap up on the carburetor, and as it cools, it'll pull it closed so the choke is on, and it'll push the choke off as it heats up. So just gotta be careful that when we do that. So let's take this off. Okay, when we take this off, you want to kind of just pull it out like that. You don't want to pull it straight off so we don't bend our arm where it connects to our carburetor. Let's put this aside. All right, so we turn this around. I'm going to start working on this side. So we've got our air cleaner and carburetor here and our gas tank off, so let's start on that next. So we're just going to unclip it at the top, take that off, take our air cleaner off, and then we've got 4 screws. We've got 2 black ones, that's holding it on the bracket behind, and then we've got these 2 silver ones, that's actually holding the plastic to the carburetor. So let's take this off. These are 2 different sizes, so you need to, I believe this is a 9/32 here, and then a little bit bigger, this is going to be a 15/16 here. So let's go ahead and take the black ones off. And then it just pulls off here. Now again, you want to make sure you undo this plug underneath here. It only gives you about a 1/4 turn, and then it pulls out. It's not threaded. It's a 1/4 turn plug, and then it just comes straight down, and we will drain our fuel all that way. But this is already empty, and we're assuming that our tank is also empty, that we drain that too. So now all I'm going to do before I take off the carburetor, I want to disconnect my hose here from the carburetor. So we're going to go ahead and do this one. So let's get some pliers. Now I'm using some lineman pliers, which would work great. Slip joint pliers would also work great. If you can get some needle nose on the side right here, that would also work. But all I'm going to do is give that little clamp a squeeze. I'm just going to slide that up about halfway. And then the other thing I want to do is just very carefully work this off. I really don't want to grab it here on the carburetor. I want to work it here at the top. And what you can do as well, as long as you're careful, is you can pull this off the bracket, and that will give you a little bit more room to work with on the carburetor. You can see I can just do that by hand and we're loose. And I'm going to leave this carburetor here. I don't want to take anything off because I still have another rod to take care of. So let's talk about how we can get the tank off. Now with our tank, it's attached with 2 tabs right here into this piece of sheet metal that's screwed to the block. So I've got 3 little tangs here that are kind of pushed out or fingered out to kind of lock this plastic into place. So all I'm going to do is get a screwdriver in here and I'm just going to give this a little twist and then give that a little tug up. I'm not prying, I'm just twisting the screwdriver like I would normally use a screwdriver. And I'm going to get this on the back side. Just be careful that you don't clip it in the front again. And there we go. Now if you do have a little fuel, just always tip it back and bring it over to your gas can, and then you can dump that forward and pour out the rest of your fuel. So now with the carburetor, this arm is loose that went to our exhaust, that went to our choke here. So that's fine. We're going to take this out. It's also a great idea. Take a picture from this direction, from this direction, from this direction, from this direction, just so when you go to put this all back, you know exactly where it goes and you don't have to worry about it because this arm is oriented a certain way. We don't want to mix this up. I'm going to put that aside. And then we have another arm that's attached to our governor here. Our governor's inside the engine. We'll talk about that later with this tension spring here. So I'm just going to pull this forward, and then I'm going to move, just kind of work that off our arm. Also, you have a O-ring here, a black O-ring, and you also have this plastic white ring too. So make sure when we take off this bracket that you do not lose both those rings. And again, the white one goes first, and then our black O-ring goes after that. Now, as far as disassembly goes, we do have this bracket that holds a carburetor. It doesn't have to come off necessarily because it's really not in the way of anything, but we're going to go ahead and take this off. It just is bolted onto the head right here and right here. So let's go ahead and remove that. You'll notice when that came off, there is also another O-ring here that seals this piece of plastic to the head. So please make sure when you take this off that this O-ring is not stuck or melted or there's something wrong with this. Just make sure that that's there and it's in good condition when we reassemble this. Now, as far as the top of the engine goes, we have a few things to take off. And the first thing we're going to do is take off our magneto coil right here. So we're going to unscrew this and get this out of the way. Make sure we also disconnect that wire from this end. And then we have our engine brake and kill switch that are right here. So we have 2 bolts right there that we need to get to as well. I found that it's easier if we can turn these fins to get that our tool in here. That's a little bit better, and then turn it this way. That makes it really easy to get to. So let's go ahead and take this out. Next, our dipstick tube is really easy to pull out. It's just in 2 tabs right here, so you just get your finger under here, and then we're just going to pull out our dipstick tube and set that aside. Now, the tricky part is we've got this big nut on our crankshaft that we need to get off and pull the whole flywheel off. And you'll notice I've got 2 openings right here. They do make a special tool, so you can put it in here, give you some leverage, and then get that nut off. One way we can do this is actually if we got a big impact, we can just hit it real quick, and that should be able to get that nut off. Another thing I'm going to try is I'm going to attach a wire cable through one of these because I don't want to put it around the fins because these are plastic. These will break easily. But if I can just get it through here and then wrap it around the cylinder here, that's one way to do it if you don't have that special tool at home. So let's give that a shot. So I've got this clamped off here, and I've got this wrapped around the cylinder a few times. That should give me enough. Let's see what happens here. And again, I want to make sure I'm going the right way. I want to go to the left, counterclockwise when I do this. Get something good to brace yourself on. Just to show you what parts we've got here, we've got our nut that we got loose, and then we've got the square washer, and then we've got this piece that our pull cord, actually the fingers actually push into and actually turn to get our engine started. And then we have our fan, this plastic piece, and you're gonna pop that out, and then we're gonna take out our flywheel, and we'll show you how to do that. So I've got my puller here. You could even make one of these if you want. If you got a piece of steel, a flat piece of bar would be fine. Even if it's thinner than this, it should be fine because this is aluminum. There shouldn't be a lot of pressure here. And then 2 screws. Now you have to have them lined up just right as far as where these holes are to match the distance from here to here. But that's really all you need. You could just go to the hardware store and make one of your own. But what I'm going to do is, I'm going to find out what tap fits this screw that I bought or that goes to this. And this one is a 1/4 inch 20 threads per inch. So all I'm going to do is come down here. Now this has already been threaded, but I just want to make sure I'm straight. I'm going to come down and I'm going to just keep turning this. If it starts to bind up, I want to give this a 1/2 turn back, and that will clear out the chips that I'm creating or the cut I'm creating. And I'm going to keep turning and turning and turning until I kind of feel it stop and bottom out. I don't want to go any farther than that because this is soft aluminum. So I've got this one. I'm going to back this all the way out. Let's get this out of the way. Come over this side, same thing. Make sure I'm bottomed out. There we go. Okay, clean those out. Again, half a turn. I'm going to keep going until I kind of feel that I'm at the bottom of the hole there, and that's fine. Go ahead and take that out. Now with my puller tool, I'm going to make sure the nuts are high enough that I can get into those holes. So I'm going to line those up, and they should go in by hand fairly easily. I shouldn't have a lot of binding or weird stuff going on, and that feels pretty good. And then I just want to give them just about a 1/4 turn. I don't need to crank down on these. It's not necessary. This one's going a little bit farther than the other one. That's fine. So now what I'm going to do is actually I'm going to turn these 2 nuts here, and what that's going to do is push this plate down onto the shaft and then draw the whole flywheel up. So all I'm going to do is take my wrench. I'm going to take this at the top. I'm going to give that about 1/2 turn. Come over the other side, give it 1/2 turn. I don't want to turn one side more than the other. I want to keep them even, or else it'll be off as I'm turning this, and I don't want that to go. So watch your hands, because this will pop as it goes, so you want to be careful. There it goes, and there's our flywheel. That came off. So you also have a little keyway here. This keeps the shaft in line with our flywheel, so make sure when you take this off and you bag this up, you put this with all your parts that went on top here. We do have this metal plate here. Can you take it off? Yeah. Do you need to? No, we don't need to do that. There is a spot under here for a breather tube, and it's not necessary. We may have to get some access. They put a nice hole here to get access for our governor arm, so that's fine. I like that they did that there. But that's all as far as we need to go on the top. And now we can flip this over on the bottom and take the plate off the bottom of our engine. So we've got 7 bolts we got to take out. We got 3 here and 1, 2, 3, 4 here. So let's go ahead and remove those. And just be mindful, you'll notice we've got 6 that are the same length here and 1 that's a little bit shorter here. So when we put this back together, that shorter one goes right here on kind of the flat side of our engine, right in the middle. Everywhere else, kind of around the perimeter here. It gets the longer bolt. This one, the short guy, goes right here in the middle of these two on kind of the back side of our engine here. Now, when we're taking this off, it may be stuck on here a little bit. You may need a hammer or a mallet. I prefer to use a rubber mallet, not an actual hammer. Or if you need to use a hammer, get a block of wood and hit it. We do not want to hit this case with any type of metal because this is pretty thin and it can't take you smacking it. So go ahead and give this a tug. If it's not coming, let's go get a little rubber mallet. Let's get this knocked off. So it's a little bit easier for me to try and do this on its side instead of trying to hit it from the bottom up. So I never want to hit it like this. I want to get a piece of wood or something like this and I can give it a smack. And it's already coming loose here. And it might bind on your drive shaft here. You can see we got some rust and build up here, so it might hang up a little bit, but that's okay. So I'm gonna let's flip it this way. See if we can get, there we go. We got it off. And here we go. So this has already been apart once and the gasket will get torn, definitely. It happens with this engine. And I wanna point something out. And we're not going to talk about it or get into it right now, but this is our governor arms right here, and then we've got this little wheel right here. And as this spins, what happens, these little metal arms will push out and move this arm this way. And I want you to note where the position of this, because this is where it needs to be when we reassemble this. It can't be over here, it can't be over here. We got to be right in there, or else the case won't even go back on. So that's where this is what controls our governor arm to control our RPMs, and a lot of people want to rip this out or take it out. They're like, doesn't care. It's important because when this is under load, this is what is controlling or keeping those RPMs that we want rather than it just really bogging down. So take a special note of this as far as the position of your governor arm and your little governor gear. So let's take this out. Let me show you. You can see as this spins, the centrifugal force will actually push those arms out just like that as the engine spins. And the faster it spins, the more the centrifugal force will keep this out and want to push on this arm to regulate those RPMs. So we can go ahead and take this out, put it aside. Yeah, we can take it out. This is our cam gear. Go ahead and take that out. Our crankshaft, we have a gear here. I'm going to slip this out as well. And I almost forgot, here on our case, we have a washer right here that goes between the cam gear here and the plate there. Sometimes, just like this, it will actually be stuck from oil. It'll be stuck to the plate here. So please make sure that you don't lose this or forget about it. I like kind of keeping these together and then bagging this all up into one bag. We also have our tappets here. I'm going to go ahead and take these out as well. And I know we got some push rods in there. I'm not going to worry about those for the moment. But then we can go ahead and start working on the head, and then we will take the piston and the crankshaft out. All right, so for our head, we're going to take the valve cover off in just a second, but let's take our spark plug out. And this particular one takes a 5/8 inch spark plug socket. So of course, make sure that rubber piece is in there so to protect our spark plug. It's looking pretty good. It looks brand new. It doesn't even look like it's been out. So let's go ahead and take our valve cover off. Just don't forget your gasket here. It's kind of a rubber poly gasket. It's kind of cool. We're going to take these shims off first. And you might be able to pull them off. Needle nose work good. If you don't have that, a magnet also will work wonderfully. We'll set those aside, and I'm going to leave these alone. And I'm not going to take these off yet. But sometimes, if I'm not careful, and I don't pull these off first. They get lost when I start disassembling the head, and I don't want to lose those, so I'm going to set this aside with my valve cover. Now this is only a peculiar part because I don't have any standard sockets that fit this, but a metric will, 10 millimeter will fit this. You probably will need a larger wrench, or ratchet I should say. But what I'm going to do, I'm just going to hit this once. And that's actually too much. I just want to break these loose. Just a little bit here. And then here, I don't want to take them all out at once. If I take this one all the way out, what can happen is this whole thing can warp. So I just want to do this one a little bit, a little bit, a little bit, a little bit. Take the tension off so I don't warp the head, and then I can go ahead and take the bolts out all the way. And I can take our head off. Let's see if we're loose. Very carefully, I'm going to give this a smack because I do not want to damage the head. But sometimes the head will actually stick on here. We have all four out, and there's nothing else behind here. I don't see another fifth bolt, so I'm just going to give this a smack. There we go. And you'll notice our head gasket, this one doesn't look too bad. We might be able to get this one off. I've got another one already because I'm not going to risk it, because sometimes when we try and pull this off, or we can just leave it here, to be honest. I'm going to leave that there. I'm not even going to pull it off. I can see some of the materials kind of gone right here. Yeah, we're going to be okay with this one to reuse it, but I've got an extra one just in case we don't do it right or something goes wrong. I can put another one on, but this one might be okay for us to reuse. So let's keep moving. Let's go ahead and take our piston out. Now, one thing I did not mention, I have the push rods in here. I'm going to push these out. They're kind of stuck inside the case. Kind of fell in, but I'm going to slide those out and put that also with our stuff from the head that we got. So for our crankshaft here and our piston, I just want to make sure everything's moving okay. Seems pretty good. Cylinder looks okay. So I got two bolts right here, and we're going to go ahead and take these out. You just want to rotate this around to give you enough room to get your ratchet handle and socket in here. Be careful, because this is a very sharp edge. You don't want to hit your knuckles on that. And I'm going to leave my arm here for my governor. I'm not even going to touch that if I can. That way we don't have to make too many adjustments later. We will check it when we reassemble it, but for right now I'm going to leave that in the same position that it was when we disassembled this. So now I'm going to rotate this around, and I want to take this little cap off our connecting rod, and that's looking pretty good. And I can kind of rotate this around, and I'm just going to, from the bottom, give that a push, and I'm going to push my piston right out the top here. And our final step is just to pull our crankshaft out of the case. Now, I got some rust on that other side, so it might not want to come out. Basically, you might have to put some WD-40 on that, because yeah, I do have quite a bit of rust here. Let's see if we can just work it out. There we go. You can see you got a little bit of rust right there. It was hanging up on. We'll clean that up before we install this, and we'll clean this up before we install this. And we always want to make sure we put the cap back on the connecting rod, make sure we put it the right way. And then I like taking our two bolts and then screwing those in by hand. Here and here. And I want to point something out while we're here, that this notch right here on the piston always goes towards the flywheel side, as well as this. You can see right here, this says MAG. MAG also means that's going this rod. If we ever take the connecting rod off the piston, the magneto is on the top, so the notch always faces towards the top of the engine, and that MAG is always going that way. If we ever have to disassemble this, and we might tear this down, or we might just leave this alone for right now. We got some cleanup to do on this, but now our engine is fully disassembled. So our last step, I'd like to take out these valves and see how they look, and these come out pretty easily. You can just do this with finger pressure. And we've got our rocker arms right here, and we will show you how to adjust those later. But I've got these keeper right here on the spring. These are pretty light springs, so all I have to do, let me get this on camera. All I have to do is press that down and then slide that up, and that comes right up out of the way. Let me see if I can get that. It's kind of blurry. Try that again. Okay, lock that back on there. So we're locked on. Press that down, and that's going to come right off. Again, we don't want to lose these, so take the spring and the keeper off, put that aside. I'm going to push the valve down and out of the way. Maybe. Same thing with this one. I want to find where that opening is. I'm holding the valve from the back side so it doesn't push down when I push down the spring. But I'm going to push that down, get it come to the wider opening on the keeper, pull that keeper and spring off, and then I'm going to slide my valve out this way. There's a little bit of water, a little bit of corrosion on there. Looks like some water got in here, but we'll take a look at it and do some inspection on this and see if we can get this fired back up. So if you have any other questions about disassembly of this engine, please put those below. If you have any comments or something that you think I missed or that I didn't cover, please put those below, and I'll be happy to answer those. Stay tuned for the inspection and reassembly videos that are to follow. And this is Jake of All Trades saying we'll see you next time.